if I think to the European model of city, I think that we need, say, to update it a little bit. We still remain very much close to the idea of the small and very compact and very mixed city, and the type of public space that is related to this type of city. Unfortunately, or let's say, this is life, the city of today is very different from this model. So when we speak of a European city, we should specify, is it the contemporary European city, or is it the ancient European city? I prefer to, let's say, to take care of the contemporary European city, that in some level is very similar now to other type of models that have been developed in other also continents and countries. And I think that we have to learn from each other, and we have to learn also from our own traditions, of course. So I think that there is a lot still to be learned from the ancient European city. It's a kind of deposit of incredible spatial ideas. At the same time, this should not hide from our eyes the presence of something that is so different. Why so different is because, first of all, as we all know, the relationship between open and built space is completely different from the past. And now the open space is the most important entity inside our cities, which means that the idea of public space has to connect with this wider open space that is also giving a lot of, let's say, ecosystemic services. This means that we are not only working on societal questions, but we are also working at the same time through the open space of the contemporary European city on ecological questions. And this, I think, is very, very important. Of course, also in the past, the European city was dealing with socio and ecological questions, but today we have a different awareness, we have different problems, urgencies. So I think that today, to reframe the topic of public space together with the ecological urgencies, really design a different type of space. And the contemporary city is where we can test this type of space. When we think about cities, of course we think about societies, and we think about values, which type of values we want to represent in our cities. And today I see everywhere, and I also personally live a shift in values, a shift in ethical values especially. And design is completely crossed by this ethical shift. Let's say that we cannot design as we were designing in the past. This is very clear to everyone. And this is why, because we think it's important not to accept, for example, the value of life, of biodiversity, and then our open space, our public space will be designed in a different way, because we are aware of the rarefaction of materials. So we know that by using certain materials, we are in fact depleting the world. So there are many understanding today that are becoming also shifting values, in ethical values. And the most important one, I think, is to consider that the territory altogether in its complexity is really a subject and not just an object, a place of resources, a place to deplete, but is an individual, is a sum of individuals, and our design has to take into account those individuals. Could be the water, could be the soil, could be the vegetation, could be, of course, people, different type of people, and to assume these differences inside and the dignity of each difference, I think, is what is changing the way in which we design. So this ethical shift, for me, is something very concrete. It's not a kind of theoretical reflection, but is in every choice we do when we make a project. Our territories are today in the position to be rethought. This is not something that is happening at any moment. But in this period of the history of humanity and the history of the planet, we need to explore something different. And this is the reason why I use this theme of the laboratories of the transition, because I think that cities and territories, or city territories, I would prefer to say, they are the space where we can explore and test. Of course, to test at the one-to-one scale is not easy. To test when you have people living in a certain place, where you have existing ecosystems, you want to test is always, you need a lot of prudence, and you need also to be very aware of what you are modifying, which means that we probably have to test exploring possibility to come back eventually if things are not really going in that direction. There is a lot of uncertainty. When you speak of socio-ecological systems, there is a lot of uncertainty, and you don't know exactly how your transformations, what will be the impact of your transformations on this complex system. That's why I think that we have to explore, because one of the consequences would be, okay, but then we cannot explore. We cannot take the freedom to explore. We should be sure when we make something. But this is not, let's say, rigorous, even in scientific terms. We need to explore, we need experimentation, and cities and territories are where we can test this kind of new, for example, new alliances among, for example, the water management and the construction of public space. This is a big theme on which, in the last decades, we have been working, and we know that not everything is evident, that sometimes you have to try, to test, maybe to modify, so to maintain this reversibility and the possibility to come back in case things are not really working very well, I think is very important, and is part of the prudency we need to maintain, because I'm convinced that we need to experiment, and we need to make exploration that are not immediately going towards the solution of something. We need to understand, and we need to maintain this openness towards also imagination, to maintain openness towards something that can be different from the past. So the difficulty of the moment should not be a moment kind of replying on ourselves and say, okay, we go back to the past because the past is better. No, the past is not better. And especially the last centuries are not better than of what we want to do now. So I think we really need first to establish that there is also a shift, a step to be made. We need to put all our imagination, and I think that designers are perfect in this moment. I feel that we are in a very important moment for our profession, for our also motivations. But we have to probably to work in a different way. So we are not just repeating, for example, the effort of imagination that was so fundamental in the modern era. We have to maintain this idea of effort of imagination, but we have to imagine with different parameters, with different ethical values, with different attentions. And this is very crucial, but we have to imagine. In general, I think that I like very much geographical public spaces. So I like to walk, and I try to walk as often as possible, as longer as possible. So I need big, large open spaces and public spaces. So I think that cities have really to invest on this scale of public space, especially the contemporary city that, as I said at the beginning, is much vaster than the past, and is full also of occasions. And I especially like when this public space reveals the geography. So I like the waterfront, I like mountains, I like lakes, etc. So in this moment, for example, because of where I work in different places, but I stay some days a week in Lausanne, for example. So the Lake of Geneva, or the Leman, is for me one of the most beautiful public spaces. And I'm very nervous when I see that this public character is blocked and stopped by urbanization that is on the shore, and you cannot pass. This, I think, is an attempt to our right to live on our earth. So I think that we have to understand there is a very crucial relation between our intimate well-being, psychologically, symbolically, etc., and where we put our feet. So we have to put our feet on this geography, and we must be in the condition to appreciate it and to use it and to exchange, especially with it.